Agmas nefesh. Sheyesh l'adam aver shasa. The sorrow, the sadness that a person has on the averos which he did. Himamish yisur gehenim also avera. So they are the same thing as being feeling the pain of Gehenna that avera. So it's a very, very, I guess, comforting thing to think that when a person feels the remorse and sadness over having done avera, that is a form of Gehenna, and therefore it atones for his sin. And l'chein amru so perikam the brachos. That's what it says at the end of the first paragraph brachos. That means bayish basam. He was embarrassed by his sin. Mochlin lo. He's forgiven. Ki kvar sobal onesh Gehenna. He already suffered the punishment of Gehenna. So Gehenna, Gehenna itself, it's depicted by Chazal as being a very fiery and painful place, but neshama doesn't have any pain sensors. The neshama can't pick up pain once it's dead. There's a Gemara which says that kasha machar that the well, I don't remember the exact quote. Save me for a moment, but that the neshama is feels the pain of the body in the grave, and the Mefarshim say it's not literal, but the neshama feels the pain of embarrassment that the body is decomposing and rotting and undergoing all sorts of um, degradation when it's after death, but it's not actual pain. And the same thing is true about Gehenna. Gehenna is not actual fire, but Chazal didn't have a way to tell us it's painful for us except to give us a mushal for physical pain. So therefore Chazal gave us the mushal and said it's like fire. It's like fire is painful, Gehenna is painful. Embarrassment doesn't seem to us as painful as fire. So therefore Chazal told us, no, you should know. The fire of Gehenna, which is the embarrassment and the shame and the sense of degradation, the sense of having failed in this world, is one which is similar to fire. So that's why he says here, "I'm bayish," but somebody who's embarrassed by his sin, mochilo is forgiven. Because they underwent the punishment of Gehenna. Somebody who merits from heaven. So if a person has a schus, he has a merit from Shemaim, they remind him all the time about the averos that he did. Mismar meraleim, and he's bitter about them. To the point that he suffers the measure of Gehenna, which he should suffer on account of the sin in this world. So it's interesting. Obviously, tshuva can take away the need to undergo those yisurim. Whether it's fully or not fully, it depends how severe the sin was. But certainly tshuva can take away some of that. And the reason probably is, if we understand it rationally, without going into the mystical aspect of it, is because the sin is embarrassing. But fixing the sin feels rewarding. So therefore, feels like I'm doing something good. So therefore, I need to have less embarrassment because I made something positive, as something with that which I did wrong. So therefore, tshuva helps to diminish the yisurim because I have less to be embarrassed about. I even have something to be proud about. That I took something which is negative and made it into a positive. But the less the tshuva, the more the embarrassment remains. And the more embarrassment remains, the more I have to suffer that embarrassment in order to fix that which I did wrong, in order to get the Gehenna, which atones for the sin in this world. That is what Chazal call the taking into account and paying up on the averos which one did. Tzaddik pays for the averos he did in this world. There are other types of punishments in a different sense, where which have to do with other cheshbonos, not necessarily with your specific averos. So he gives an example. The how long a person lives, and that also includes a person's health. How many children a person has, also obviously includes his getting married. Mizone, and how much parnasa he has, how much income he has in this world. Lo b'schus l'tal milsa el b'mazla. That doesn't have to do with schus necessarily. In other words, it has to do with merit or demerit. It doesn't do with mitzvahs averus. El mazla has to do with his destiny in this world, and that's a separate thing than the shame and embarrassment he has from his averus. So the shame and embarrassment, says Tzadok, those are these three gehenim and averus. Other things that seem to be punishments in this world are not necessarily punishments. They could be coming because that's part and parcel of a person's destiny, his fate in this world, that he could be suffering because Hashem designed him to be a person who suffers. We don't know why, but we understand that each gilgul a person undergoes in this world, a person is given a specific mission, specific task, which fixes his neshama, and there's some gilgulim are comprised of suffering, because that's what the neshama needs at that moment for its tikkun. So that's a separate thing than the embarrassment. That's what David HaMelech says. King David says, even when I go in the valley of the shadow of death, lo ira, I will not be afraid. So what's he talking about? Even though he says he's talking about gates hamavis, which seems to refer to Gehenim, doesn't make sense, says Tzadok, because he certainly did not think he's going to be in Gehenim in the event after his death. Much because, like it says, he calls himself a chassid. So therefore, his assessment of himself is that, on the whole, he's in a positive place. So where is the gates hamavis? The valley of the shadow of death he's passing through, that he's saying, I'm not going to be afraid because you're with me. But even if he did think that he wasn't the greatest, he wouldn't, in any event, he wouldn't have opened his mouth to the Satan, which means, a person always has to be careful what they say. So in order not to, that the things should not become self-fulfilling prophecies. The people should not then succumb to actually what they said about themselves, that this thing will happen to them. It's like another little Russian, the pasuk says, "Asher garti bali," that which I'm afraid of comes to me, because if you're afraid of it, it happens to you. So therefore, David HaMelech would not say something to tear down his confidence and to tear down his commitment and say, "Okay, I'm really afraid of Gehenna because maybe I am a bad person," because then that becomes something negative, which actually could come true. It's an interesting thing, which Tzadok says. I'm not sure I fully understand that. I mean, Sam said a person, but I guess it's like it's like the Chazal say, a person should not see himself as a tzaddik, nor as a rasha, but as a Benoni. So if you're going to see yourself as a Benoni, so therefore it means you should not think of yourself that you're going to end up in Gehenna. It's because if you think about it, you're going to end up in Gehenna, so then it stops you from doing the right thing. You're doing yourself ending up as a tzaddik, it stops you doing the right thing. Ending up in Gehenna. As a rasha, it stops you being the right thing. So always think of yourself as in the middle. So then David HaMelech would not have said, "Oh, I'm going to end up in Gehenna," because that would have been negative, and it could have caused negative results. Being poseh pel satan. Again, I'm not sure exactly why it wouldn't be a form of humility, modesty, but okay. So Tzadok says, but he says, Rakat Solomar, but he means, so what David HaMelech meant to say is, when you go through hell in this world, when you go in sadness and in depression on his sins, by the atzvus hashchina mistalekes, and by being, we know that a person becomes sad and depressed, the shchina goes away from him. The chol of day rak know that he can come to do bad things, as is known. There's a very, very fundamental concept in Chassidus, which is that a person should always be b'simcha, because a person comes to atzvus, and certainly occurs to sadness, certainly demara shchora, to depression, It leads him away from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Leads away from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, leads him to all sorts of negative things. So therefore, David Amelech is saying, yeah, of course, I have sinned. And of course, I have to feel bad about those sins. And of course, that could lead me to sadness and to depression. Amar, and this he says, Lo ira ra ki atoy madi. I won't be afraid of bad stuff because you're with me. Now, this is a major statement Tzadok is about to make. Atah eno madreis hashchina ani kro ani. There are three levels of relationship with Shechina. Ani, Atah, and who? Me, you, and him. Right? And Ani is when the Shechina is completely with a person. And Atah is when the Shechina is opposite a person. And who is when the Shechina is concealed from a person. And the Tzadok is saying, when David Mel says, Ki atoi modi, he's saying that even a person who's upset because of his sins, and therefore he's removed one level from complete identification with the Shechina. It's not on the level of Ani. It could still be on the level of Atah. The Shechina is opposite him. As he says, a person can't feel one with the Shechina when he's sad. It says a very important pasuk in Navi that when Elisha wanted to have a prophecy, he wanted to have a nevuah, so he said, "Call for me a musician to play for me music, to uplift his mood." So a person has to be in an uplifted and happy mood in order to get nevuah, which is to be in a sense of ani with the Shechina. That the Shechina should be within me. And I don't know if we ever reach this madrega, because it's a very high madrega and it probably has a bit of prophecy in it. But there is a idea of the Shechina being me, and the way the highest level is obviously the level of Moshe Rabbeinu. It's Shechina medaberes mito grono. The Shechina talked from within Moshe Rabbeinu's mouth. Right? In other words, he was able to speak about HaKadosh Baruch Hu as if he was HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the highest madrega. But even a lower madrega, this is concept of Shechina being ani. I have complete identity with the Shechina, which is either some sort of prophetic state or something like prophecy. So if a person's bitter on account of his sins, says the Melech, okay, we're going to be on that level of ani. But it can be a level of atah. Madrega's kucha bricho ani kra atah. Zel imadi. With me. In other words, it's with me. It's not me myself, as would be on the highest level, but it's not concealed from me, as would be on the lowest level. So even at the time of the sadness on his side, he's I don't know where he says who's arousing who. Is David Melech arousing himself that to realize that the Shechina is opposite him, is HaKadosh Baruch Hu arousing him to know that he's still with David Melech? I think it's the first one. Because David Melech is arousing himself to say, yes, I have to undergo sadness in order to be happy for my sins and be embarrassed because of my sins. But I have to remember that this too is good for me and is something which Hashem is giving to me as a bracha. Because by having this Yisuri Gehenim in this world, this embarrassment and this shame, so that is we're going to atone for my sins, and therefore so the Shechina is actually doing this for me in a positive way, and therefore I have to feel that Kosh Baruch Hu is with me even at the time that I'm sad. So the two fundamental principles in the Reb Tzadok we just learned. First one is that certain types of sadness are good because especially when a person is sad about an Aveira. Actually, say that Reb Tzadok is saying that when a person's sad because of an Aveira, that's a good thing because that atones for the sin, and it takes the place of Gehenna. And a person should realize, even at the time of the sadness, that Hashem is with him, and it's really a gift from Hashem that a person is sad at this point in time. Now, like Reb Tzadok also said along the way, he said if a person suffers in other ways, it's not necessarily an atonement for his sins. It has positive purpose or part of the master plan, but it's not necessarily an atonement for sins. It could be coming because of some other reason. Okay, Nunches. Oops. It's something where a person is clean. He has no uh, um, connection, literally touch, and desire. Nikot tzaddik also davar. He's called tzaddik for that thing. So this is one of the again a revolutionary statement of Reb Tzadok, which is that you can be a tzaddik in a certain respect, even though in other respects you're not a tzaddik. The flip side for sure is also true. You can be a Russia in certain respects, even though you're not a Russia in other aspects. Human beings are complicated. You can be a tzaddik and a Russia at the same time. So he says, in the thing in which you are, you have no negir taiva. So that thing, you are a tzaddik. So he says, Kadesh Kosav Rashba Benida. It's like the Rashba wrote in Mesach Zida, the Ian Kamalim, to camel drivers. Kulam Rishoim. It says camel drivers are all wicked. Uvasov Kiddush Isaruvim Ksherim. And then Kiddush says that most of them are good people. So which one is it? Are they bad people or good people? So it's not a contradiction. Human beings are paradoxes. They're walking paradoxes. So you can be a Russia in one respect, and it's tzaddik in another respect. This can be a Russia in one respect and a kosher in another respect. Kosher is not the same level as tzaddik, but it says tzaddik the same idea. In other words, a person, a camel driver, can be a Russia in that he lets his camels graze in other people's yards and take their their grass, which is a form of theft. And he be a tzaddik in the sense that when he goes out to the desert, he davens to HaKadosh Baruch Hu for protection, for siyata d'ishmaya. So there is a person can be a tzaddik and a Russia at the same time. Ina shlava kasuv omer lo yuneh l'tzadik kol ra. The tzaddik will not, in this manner, in which he's a tzaddik, nothing bad will befall him. Not other things, bad things can befall him on account of other aspects of his personality, but not in this respect. But also davar. So therefore, it's a fascinating Reb Tzadok, as all Reb Tzadok is, but fascinating Reb Tzadok. He says, why is a person who doesn't have error unintentionally, by accident, called a sinner? So kapara require kapara. He did it unintentionally. It's not his fault. Because if Hashem caused you to sin in a specific way, it's a sign that you're not clean in that. If you were clean in that, you wouldn't have sinned in that. So so that's what I'm saying. When a person is a tzaddik in a specific aspect of his life, so he has a special protection from HaKadosh Baruch Hu in that area of his life, that he's not going to sin. If he does sin, and even if it's not deliberate, it's accidental, so it's a sign that he actually was not a tzaddik in that area of his life. So it's that's why the sin happened to him. Happened to him. He didn't do it himself. It came accidentally, but it doesn't matter. It's a sign that he's not clean. Okay, Uvisaita. It says, it's this idea is he finds in this Gemara in Saita. It says if a person himself, the man himself, the husband, is not clean of the avera of adultery, so then the water doesn't check his wife, who he brings as a sota, as a woman suspected of adultery. You have to be clean yourself in order that you can check out others, even your wife, and even your suspect of adultery. It's if you have that problem, so then don't expect that you're going to have siyata d'ishmaya in trying to deal with a different aspect of that problem. It's a fascinating idea. So there's, again, of a person himself, the man himself, the husband himself, is not clear of that avera, so there's no guarantee the water is going to check his wife. V'chein tani nazir b'chakach soita, and that's why in the uh, the um, in Shas, first comes Maseches Nazir, and then Maseches Soita. Of Ayin Reish Soita. See, beginning Soita, the Chazal say, why is the in the Torah does the parsha of Nazir and the parsha of Soita come right next to each other? A person who sees a sota, a woman who has committed adultery, should refrain from wine. And it's like a sign from Shamayim. If you saw, which is also similar to the theme of this, or not directly the same thing, but similar to the theme of this piece. If a man happened to come across a woman who's a soita, that she's doing bad stuff, it's a sign to him that he should refrain from wine, because wine, any addiction, I think, but wine specifically is associated with doing inappropriate things. And even if you just saw somebody doing something inappropriate, you should take a sign from Shemayim that, why was I exposed to this? I was exposed to this in order for me to learn that I have some issue about myself, and therefore I have to be careful and make sure not to do things, even things which might be permitted, like drinking wine, because they can lead, if not used properly or if abused, to wrong behaviors. So the person, in order for so too in order for the water to check his wife, he himself has to be clean of the avera, and that is symbolized by the fact that Maseches Nazir, which symbolizes cleaning oneself in avera, comes before Maseches Soita, before checking the wife to see if she did an avera. It's interesting that I have written down that, I don't know, I was learning with this at the time, but the person I was learning with pointed out that a Nazir himself brings a korban if he becomes tameh, right? Even if he becomes tameh by accident, he has to bring a korban and start from scratch. So the Gemara says that he brings a korban because he refrained from drinking wine. And the question is, obviously, the Torah says, and to be a Nazir is a good thing. Torah says to refrain from drinking wine is the parts of being a Nazir. So why would he bring a korban and refrain from drinking wine if the Torah tells him, you want to be holy, be a Nazir and do this? So evidently, this is like Reb Tzadok is saying, if they sent the Nazir a tumah, even he didn't deliberately become tameh, they sent the Nazir tumah from Shamayim, and they made him tameh. They're telling him, you're not clean in this thing, right? And you're refraining from wine for you, was just causing yourself pain, and somebody calls himself pain is called a sinner, and therefore you have to make a korban to atone for your sin of causing yourself pain. So, and that from the Gemara from this learns that a person shouldn't just fast if it's not without a special reason, shouldn't refrain from certain pleasures of this world unless there's a special reason. Why? Because the Nazir we see, even though he was supposed to refrain from these things, if he didn't do it right, they send him a sign from Shamayim, they make him tameh, and they tell him, start again. You didn't do it right the first time. You got to do it again. So a person is very careful to make sure, if I'm stopping myself from deriving pleasure in this world, that a person is doing it for the right reasons. And the sign that's symbolized by the Nazir, who was told, if Shamayim makes you tameh, so then that's a sign from Shamayim that you were not doing it for the right reasons. Okay, and so the person the person who's not lucky, he gets sent this sign from Shamayim, in order that it should be clarified from him that you're warning, will make you tameh, will make you something negative happen to you by accident. It's coming from Shamayim to show you that you haven't completely accomplished what you're supposed to accomplish in this area. B'chein darshu Chazal. So the Chazal learned that what it says that kiki shalta ba'avonecha, right? you stumbled in your sin. So it's a strange lashon, which is from the Navi Hosea, Shuvi Yisrael Hashem Elokecha ki kishalta b'avanecha. Right? You stumbled in your sin. You failed in your sin. What does it mean? So he says, "Ba'olecha michsholim ba'avonecha." The things, these stumbles, these failures came as a result of your sin. He's saying, "Ki kishalta b'avanecha." That means that this sin was your failure. This sin is a sign that you're failing, that you're not doing what you're supposed to do. These things come because of your other sins. Okay? And I don't know if I translated that right the first time. Let me try it again. Shalta bavanecha, the fact you stumbled now is because of your prior averos. Now you stumbled. It was an accident. You tripped. But it's because you didn't fix yourself. From these accidents, that person, you know things which is not clean from them yet in the depths of his heart. So therefore, that a person can know from the averos he does what he has to fix. And it's very similar to what we learned a while ago in Siman Mem Gimel, where it says HaKadosh Baruch Hu sometimes sends a person sins. Right? So HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends a person sins to know, this is where you have to fix yourself. Do tshuva on this. Right? It's one of the first pieces we learned. So this is the same idea. So it says here, things which not clean in the depths of his heart. Ramazal Lot, it says that Lot, that Misha Lot, somebody who has an avera, a tendency, I should say, to be involved in inappropriate behavior. They send him an avera. In this case, with his own flesh and blood, when he had had relations with his daughters. So it was accidental, right? His daughters did it to him, right? He drank too much wine and fell asleep, and his daughters had the relations with him, right? But again, it's a sign from Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Sometimes these things where you stumble, where you fail by accident, are deliberately sent by Hakadosh Baruch Hu to arouse him to tell that he should do tshuva on that thing. So again, as I said before, I want to just finish up with this. Go back to Mem Gimel, because there wasn't completely clear when we learned it, but this is what makes it actually clear. Okay, so any person has this tremendous nisayon, right? That he can't avoid sinning, but that's the reason. Because Baruch Hu sends him this as a sign, go do tshuva on this thing. Okay, and so we start out saying that a person can be a tzaddik on a certain thing, and if he's a tzaddik on a certain thing, Hashem's not going to send him avera on that thing. If he gets an avera on that thing, it shows he's not a tzaddik in that thing. And that means he's getting the avera. Even if it happened to accidentally, it's a sign for Shamayim that he has to fix it up. Okay, very good. We'll stop here for today. Have a great day, a great week.